now this picture pretty much sums up the 2020 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Red Bull with no competition whatsoever, just winning. Hello and welcome back to Technically F1. Quick announcement before we get into the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in review and sort of the season end in review. The podcast, Technically F1, our podcast, we are reaching our 10th podcast this week. And because we hit 200 listens, our listen goal, we are doing a special episode with a guest. I know, only our second episode with a guest, so you really should listen to that. Link will be in the description. If it isn't, you already know. Thank you. Let's get into the video. Now, with what people thought was the Red Bulls out of position, most thought that the Mercedes would just come through and instantly grab the lead. However, this didn't happen, because as it turned out, the Red Bulls in first and fourth were not out of position. Red Bull had actually set up their car pretty perfectly for this weekend, and they're fastest in all the downforce sectors, and even fastest in some of the non-downforce sectors. Now, the reason for that was because Mercedes could only run their engine at 90% power this weekend, and that's not me just saying that. There's actually been a couple of people in the paddock who have confirmed this, although Toto Wolff is not confirming it because it's a bit of an embarrassment when your engine is not reliable enough to have 100% power. But anyways, back to the race, and what that did was actually gave Red Bull a pretty sizable margin that they could play around with throughout the entirety of the race, and Verstappen could decide whether to push or to conserve his tires, which he did throughout the race. He just controlled everything. And the last time this happened and a Red Bull was dominating like this was 2013. If I'm honest, I don't think they're going to bring this domination into next year. I think they're going to be fighting hard with Mercedes. I don't think they'll be dominating, though. It's just because the Honda engine isn't that strong. Their aerodynamics are clearly above and beyond. They're considerably faster in the final sector. I think the team principal of Red Bull, Christian Horner, said something like 0.4 of a second faster than the Mercedes in that non-top speed sector. So that really says something about their downforce. It's really on another level, and it has been throughout the season. But overall, I think next year they will have a car that can challenge, but whether they win the championship or not is sort of up to them. It's not up to anybody else. Now, meanwhile, while the race for the lead was pretty boring, the race behind them was crazy, and we had position changes throughout the race, but in the early stages of the race, we had an early safety car. Now, for those who don't understand why we would have a safety car, well, there was a car on track. A car stopped on track, and that car stopped on track was Sergio Perez. He had 2 engine failures in 3 races. Now, the first one was a full battery failure. This one looks to be a gearbox failure, and it seems that the cause of this could be that they were running the engine in too high of a mode. The gearbox couldn't handle it. It just shut off. I've watched the onboard video a couple of times. It sounds like a gearbox failure. People are saying it's a gearbox failure, and too much power through the gearbox is why you would have that sort of a problem. But they couldn't get the car out of the way, so after the virtual safety car, they had a safety car, and everybody pitted under that onto the hard tires, which pretty much ended the race for those who wanted good strategy. So no interesting strategy calls this race. Sorry, people who like strategies. Anyways, as we continued, that pretty much took Racing Point out of the fight for third place in the championship. But Lance Stroll was still trying to make moves through the field to get up. Eventually, he overtook Sebastian Vettel, but that took him way too long. I don't know whether he was just slow this weekend. Maybe he had a bad setup on the car. There's no indication that the car setup was bad. I think he was just really slow this weekend. He has been in previous years as well, especially 2017. He couldn't find the pace in the Williams, even though his teammate was considerably faster than him in the points. It's too bad that he ends 2020 on a whimper, but then again, he also, in theory, has cost the team third place, and the millions of dollars that comes with that. Now, Daniel Ricciardo sort of ran the midfield race because he was ahead of Lando Norris, and Lando couldn't catch him on new tires. Daniel had exceptional pace on the hard tires. I'm not sure how he was so fast. Maybe he qualified in a high engine mode, or I don't know what he did, but Whatever he did in the race today, it was exceptional, and if he's going to bring that form to McLaren next year, that will be great for them. However, he just held up Lando. Lando couldn't get by him. He was within the dirtier 3.5 second window, so of course that was probably part of the reason why he was stuck behind Daniel. Inevitably, it was just a really interesting strategy battle, but of course Daniel had to pit because it's illegal to not pit in a race. So he did pit, and that dropped him pretty far back, but he did stay ahead of Esteban Ocon, which was really interesting for the Renault strategy. I thought they were going to try to favor Ocon in this case because, Daniel's the one leaving the team, but apparently not. He got preferential treatment today, got to go on the hard tires at the start of the race, and that suited him well. But continuing on through the race, the Ferraris were quite interesting because they held up Lance Stroll, but then they both pitted within a couple of laps of each other. So their strategy again was just really horrible this race. Their pit stops were okay, but their strategy was horrible. I mean, at least they didn't botch a pit stop. That would have been the end of their race. But somebody who did end their race on a low, I have to say, is Kevin Magnussen. He took 2 pit stops, 3 tire sets through that race, which was really a bad strategy. He thought he was going to be able to push really hard at the end of the race. It quite simply didn't work. So, I don't know what Haas is thinking on the strategy. Maybe they thought it'll be faster. It quite simply wasn't. Now, after the race, Carlos Sainz was investigated for a breach of one of the sporting regulations, saying that you cannot slow people down within the pit lane. Now, it's not clear whether or not he did this by slowing down Lance Stroll to hurt their strategy. If he did, that is dastardly. It's not a horrible thing, but it'll be really interesting to see whether he gets a penalty for that. If he does, then he will serve probably a 5 or 10 second penalty post-race. They'll just add that to his race time and see where he ends up. McLaren still stay third in the championship. I think this is a really good step up for McLaren, and although they're losing Carlos Sainz, they're getting Daniel Ricciardo, and that is something that Zach Brown has been very open that he's wanted for years. And even Daniel Ricciardo said that he was almost ready to step up to McLaren whenever they were ready for him. So that was interesting, to say the least, what he's been saying over the last few months. He's a big talker, Zach Brown, but I think he has talked his way into an excellent driver-team relationship, which will be Lando Norris, Daniel Ricciardo, and McLaren. I cannot wait to see how that plays out next year. Now, as this is the end of the season, we are saying some farewells to some faces. A lot of people think that Sergio Perez could be going to Red Bull. I am of the theory that because, they've just sort of kept Alex Albon's contract as late as possible, or at least the re-sign, that they actually could be trying to keep him. A lot of people don't like that, but I think he deserves a chance in a car that's easier to drive, that's less suited to Max Verstappen and more suited to his needs. I know people think that's absurd, but I just think a car like that, a car that's race-winning, or can be a race-winning car, should be suited to both drivers, not just one. Kevin Magnussen is also leaving the sport, along with Romain Grosjean. Now, these are both faces that I think we'll all miss, even if we make fun of them all the time for being the 2 people in the Haases. Yes, but they are in a very difficult position at the moment, and it's very hard to do what they have done in the Haas cars, considering that Haas is the second slowest car of 2020, the slowest being the Alfa Romeo, the running joke on this channel. If you don't know, you should know. Anyways, though, people that are moving around, we have Daniel Ricciardo moving to McLaren, Carlos Sainz moving to Ferrari. I really feel for him. I can't believe he made that career decision. It's just, I feel bad for that guy. He's moved to Ferrari in their worst era. I feel really bad, but whatever. Anyways, Sebastian Vettel had a very emotional farewell with Ferrari. I feel for him. This guy raced for Ferrari for many years, and you know what? He didn't win the championship. That is the goal, inevitably, and he wasn't able to do it. Ferrari weren't reliable enough, if I'm brutally honest. I think they also messed up, and they know that as well. Let's be honest. Ferrari have not done a stellar job these last 5 years. They've been close, maybe the third fastest, but never always the fastest. They've been outpaced by Red Bull and others. It's too bad to see them being outpaced, but it's just a thing that's happening right now. So he is moving to Aston Martin for next year, and that'll be a really interesting team. More the fact that he's at a car that can probably win a race, whereas, I really don't care about Lance Stroll. He will not win a race next year, let's be honest. It's Lance Stroll. With the performance that he had in today's race, you can't expect that much from him. But anyways, this has been a crazy 2020 season, a dramatic 2020 season, but nonetheless, it has been a season of F1 in a global pandemic, something that a lot of us didn't think was going to happen. I can tell you that I certainly didn't think it was. But it was a great season nonetheless, and I think we need to appreciate that. Next year, we're going to have a 23-race season, the longest in F1's history. That's something we can be excited for. Also, the off-season gives us a chance to look at some old races, and it gives us a chance to look at excellent cars. So, not this week, but next week, we will be doing a car focus on one of the greatest F1 cars of all time, the Red Bull RB6. Stay tuned for that. If you enjoy it, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and comment if you didn't like it. This sort of dissuades anybody not liking the video, the comment thing, so we're going to keep it up. Comment if you don't like it, and like it if you do like it. Anyways, thank you for watching. Goodbye.